This is what I told you about this morning. This is the time to ask Q&A if you have it. I'm going to turn things over to the moderator, my coworker down at Rowan University, also host of WXPN's, what is it called, Sleepy whatever? No, Sleepy Hollow. He's been there a real long time in radio. Great guy, our professor of radio at Rowan University, Keith Brand. Keith?
Thanks, Mike. This is really a wonderful event, and I just want to take this opportunity to give a hand for Channel 6 and for what they've done here today, and for the folks that gave their time on Saturday. They've really done a very nice job. I want to move this along because really I think one of the most important things that we want to get to today is questions from you for our panelists. But I think it would be very important, first off, if the panelists would quickly introduce themselves, and I'm just going to start on my left and go right down to my right. Just tell us your name and your role here at Channel 6.
Sure. My name is Jim. Hello. There we go. My name is Jim Gilbert. I'm Director of Engineering, and everything else that is under that title I won't bore you with, but it's more than electronic engineering.
My name is John Morris. I'm an executive producer at News. I also oversee the news department's transition now into a digital newsroom, getting rid of videotape. So it's a combination of journalism and technology.
My name's Nydia Hahn. I'm the consumer reporter here, and I also report on anything else that needs to be covered. And sometimes I'll fill in anchor as well.
Hello there. My name's Mike Monso. I'm the Vice President of Creative Services. Essentially, it's the advertising wing of the building, of the station.
Very important.
Hi guys, again. My name is Jessica Borg, and I co-anchor with Walter Perez on the weekend mornings, and I also report during the week, general assignment.
What she said.
Your name's Jessica.
That's right. That's my alter ego.
Caroline Welch, Vice President of Programming.
Bill Weber, I used to work here. I did a 10-year stint at WFIL. When it was WFIL, I did a morning a children's show, mornings 7 to 9. I did the Mother's Parade, the Thanksgiving Day Parade, Hess's fashion shows. This is a great station to work for.
All right, like I said, so we can get to a Q&A. I'm going to ask each of you if you could just sort of keep this little presentation to about 4 minutes. What I'd like you to do, since when I was talking to Carolyn, she had made mention to me that it might be interesting to know where some of our panelists, where they started in college. Not everybody came to these positions, I'm sure, from a radio, television, and film background. So if you could just tell us briefly about your path, what your role, what you did while you were in college, and a little bit about your job here at the station.
Well, my college experience is rather limited. I did enroll in college in an electronic engineering course. However, I left after 2 years because I wanted to be a rock and roll musician. This is the 60s, and I could kick myself for doing that. But it was a good experience. But when the band broke up after 3 years, and I started going to night school, catching up on what I had missed out on. But I started in television through a connection. Our manager knew people at the local public station, and my first job was called a production assistant at the local public station in Rochester, New York. And a production assistant at a public station in a small market means you do everything. And that's probably the best education I could possibly imagine. I would do it again in a heartbeat because you learn so much. You get a chance to do everything. You did it, and we directed, we lit, we built sets, we ran audio, we switched, we did a little repair. I mean, we swept the floors, we did everything. So that was my first experience in television. And from there I went to the local commercial station in Rochester, the ABC affiliate. And then I came down here in the 70s. Wanted to get out of the Rochester market, mainly because I couldn't stand the weather. Many of you have heard about Buffalo, New York. All right, well, we're only 90 miles east of Buffalo, so it's pretty much the same thing right on the lake. you have about 2 months of nice weather, so in a year. So I wanted to get out of that area for that reason, and also I wanted more of a career when I make more money. And from there, you go to a larger market. So I did manage to land a job here at Channel 48, which back then in the 70s was owned by Kaiser, and it was the one of 3 independents in the market. There was no cable. It was a different world for an independent station. I mean, for all of us. I mean, our share was huge back then. And after 4 years there, I was elevated to a supervisor position, and there was a management position open at the ABC affiliate in Boston, WCVB, and I had heard about WCVB reading in the trades, that they did more local programming than any other station in the country as a result of a promise to the FCC to win the license from the RKO General, or actually it was WHDH. So I went up there, and that's I spent 10 years there as assistant chief engineer, and then 5 years at the local field station, and then Gannett, and then Tribune. We were bought 3 times while I was chief engineer at Channel 56 in Boston. Then I spent 2 years at the ABC affiliate in Pittsburgh, and then came here. I've been here for almost 8 years.
Pack your bags.
Thanks. Jim Gilbert, Vice President of Engineering. We're going to move on to John Morris, Executive Producer of News Technology.
I went to a small liberal arts school in Ohio where I was a double major in politics and journalism. And before I had gone to school, I talked to some people I knew who actually worked here at the time. And, they suggested that major in something that gives you some knowledge, not just, don't go to school to learn how to be on TV. Go to school to learn something, and then figure out how to turn that into a journalism career. So I was a double major in politics and journalism, learned about politics, journalism at this school was a very writing-intensive program, all about writing, not about the technical side of either print or broadcast. And I had several internships in college, one here, one at a TV station in Columbus. Got hired out of school in Columbus, first as I think my title was news assistant, which was probably the same as production assistant. It was field producer, assignment desk, run teleprompter, rip scripts, do Chiron. It was whatever they needed. And that turned into, which at the time was something I didn't want to do. It turned into a job producing the news. I had always said, I don't want to be a news producer. That sounds like a terrible job. I want to be on TV. I got forced to produce the noon show one day in Columbus, and I absolutely loved it, and immediately gave up any desires to be on air, and produced in Columbus for about a year. Came back here after some people I'd interned with said there was an entry-level job opening up in the newsroom as a writer, but one that would probably turn into a producing job several years down the road. I'm from Philadelphia, so I thought it was a great opportunity. I came back. I was the weekend writer, wrote for the 5:30 newscast during the week, 3 days a week. Did that for about a year before something that never happened upstairs, and that is somebody left, and the next thing there was a big shuffle of people, and I ended up producing the noon newscast. Did that for about 3 years. Went from there to the weekends, produced the weekend nights for a couple of years, produced our 5 o'clock show for a year, then was named the executive producer of the morning news, overseeing the producers who produced the morning show. Did that for a couple of years or so, and my boss can always tell when I'm beginning to get a little antsy, so she created, as we have entered this new technological phase in television of now going digital as opposed to videotape, she needed somebody to oversee that process. So without taking away any of my news responsibilities, she also decided to have me take over this new project of helping us get rid of all of our videotapes and move to a newsroom that has no videotape at all and plays everything off of computers. And so that's that's where I really focus my efforts now, although I still have my hands involved in the daily newscast as well. So I've actually managed to do it without moving too many places, Columbus to Philadelphia, and that's about it.
John Morris, executive producer of News Technology. I don't know why I'm having
These are
problems with that word.
executive protector as well.
Next, Nydia Hahn, consumer reporter.
I actually went to school at Northwestern University, which is in a suburb of Chicago. The undergraduate campus is in Evanston, Illinois. I'm actually born and raised, though, in California. I have moved and lived everywhere. I was not as lucky as John Morris, although it's been a wonderful adventure. So I went to Northwestern University, the Medill School of Journalism. I have to tell you, if there's one message that I can sort of send to all of you, it is that I remember so clearly sitting where you are. And I remember so clearly so many people telling me, you will never get a job in TV, you should just quit now. I had a professor who actually suggested that I quit the major and consider something else as a career. And I persevered. The very next quarter I had a professor who said, I think you'll be okay, just stick with it. I originally intended to be a print reporter, either for a newspaper or a magazine. I did an internship in Seoul, Korea, actually, at a newspaper. And the next quarter, just for fun, I decided to intern at a television station, and I sort of caught what I call the TV bug, and decided that I would go into broadcast. When I was a senior, I started sending out resume tapes. I sent out probably 40 or 50. I road tripped all across California once I had finished school, looking for a job. I heard all kinds of things, that nobody would hire me because I had a horrible voice and no one would want to listen to me. I heard, someone told me, I was 21 at the time, that I had too many wrinkles on my forehead and he didn't know what I would look like in 5 years, that he couldn't hire me either. And so after many nights of crying and thinking that I was never going to make it, I got that one call that I needed. This is a very subjective business. It just takes one person to like you. And he called from Pocatello, Idaho, market 164. There are about 209 markets, I think, in the country, New York being number one, and I don't know what the smallest market is.
Michigan.
Sheboygan.
Sheboygan. Well, Pocatello, Idaho is not far off from the smallest market. I felt like I was exiling
Alpena,
myself to
Michigan.
Siberia, Alpena, Michigan. All of my friends were working in New York and Philadelphia and LA and all these cool places, and I was moving to Pocatello and making $14,000 a year, by the way. People are often curious what first-time reporters make. But I have to tell you, it was a wonderful experience, some of the best memories and experiences of my life. We shot and edited our own tape. We were one-man band. I set up my own live shots. It was a really great place to learn and to make mistakes and not get fired. So I was a general assignment reporter there. I covered everything from city council to the occasional murder that we got in Pocatello, Idaho, to environmental issues, that sort of thing. After 2 years there, I decided it was time to move on, and I went to Oklahoma City, where I was the crime reporter for the ABC station there. I was there after the bombing of the federal building. A lot of people ask me that. But we did all the trials, and of course there were follow-up stories every week. So I was there for 2 years. And while I was there, I also became sort of the hidden camera sweeps queen. I'm not really sure how that happened, but I enjoyed it. And those were the stories that ended up being on my resume tape coming out of Oklahoma City. So the news director at the ABC owned and operated station in Houston saw those stories, and he was looking for a consumer investigative reporter, so who would do more long format style pieces. That was sort of my primary focus when I was there. So I was hired by the ABC station in Houston. I was there for several years. I did a lot of things while I was there. I was the consumer investigative reporter, but I also did a talk show that aired once a month, and I also anchored sort of a feature show every Saturday. So it was a fun place to do a lot of different things. And then I decided that maybe it was time to move on again and try something different. And I was fortunate enough to have WPVI offer me a job. And I've been here as the consumer reporter for about 2.5 years. And I'm just lucky to be here. This is a wonderful place to be. This is also another great learning experience. We have people who have been here for 20, 30 years, either as producers or as anchors or reporters, and it's such a fantastic place. So it's been a long journey, but it's been a fun one. And if I can tell you anything, it would be to stick with it.
Hey, Nydia?
Yes.
What was your undergraduate major?
Oh, I sort of did a double major as well in journalism and international politics.
Nydia Hahn, Consumer Reporter, Action News. Now, Vice President Creative Services, Mike Monsell.
I am the inspiration to all you B- students out there. I, like John, went to a small liberal arts school in Pennsylvania up in Lancaster County called Elizabethtown. And as you hear me speak, you'll know why I'm not on TV and I am behind the scenes. My path is probably unlike or very similar to what you're going to be facing in the next couple of years. It's a lot of fate plays a part in what direction you go. I was just looking for a job out of college. I was a communications major. I always liked TV. We had a television station at our school, and I tried to spend as much time as I could there. And I had a knack for it. And I wasn't good at biology. I wasn't good at calculus, but I was creative enough to make things look interesting on TV. So I got straight A's in the communications department, but everything else brought the GPA down a little bit. But I did rather well in TV, and I thought, maybe I should give this a try. And I was from a small town in Pennsylvania, up near State College, and we didn't have TV stations. We'd just gotten radios when I was growing up. That was a joke.
I got it.
I know you're ready to hear Jessica and Walter. So, I got a part-time job out of college. I worked as a bartender and a busboy and a waiter for many years, and I'm sure many on the panel here have done the same, just trying to make ends meet, because even if you have a job in TV, like Nydia said, you're making $14,000 a year, it's not even enough to pay your rent and eat those ramen noodles for 14 cents a pack. So, my first full-time job just happened to come in as a promotion assistant at WGAL in Lancaster. At the same time, I was applying for news jobs. If a news job would have came up as an editor or a writer, I would have taken it. But I just got lucky, and it was a promotion assistant. And essentially what we do is we're advertisers. We advertise our product. We advertise our people. We advertise what John's doing. We advertise the entire station. And it's a really exciting position because, as an advertiser, I certainly could be promoting Q-tips or dog food, but I happen to be promoting a product like television, which is very exciting, and it lends a lot of creativity because we have to do on-air spots, we have to do outside advertising such as radio ads, we just started a billboard campaign. I'm sure you've seen them around the city. It's very exciting, and the best advice I can give to you is just surround yourself by people who know what they're doing, because when you're young and you get that first opportunity to get your foot in the door, you can work really, really hard, but if you're not learning from others around you, be a sponge. Find out who knows what they're doing in the station and just follow them around and take advice. And everyone up here on the panel is still learning. And there's a lot of people that I try to latch onto and figure out how they do things, and because I certainly have a lot of learning to do myself, and but overall it's just a lot of luck and a lot of hard work, and you have to be willing. As Nydia said, most professors in college will tell you, look around you, 1 in 10 of you will actually be working in television 5 years from now, but that one person is the one who actually is willing to work for $14,000 a year and work as a bartender at night and just pay your dues. But if you stick through it, you can have a lot of success in this industry, and it's a lot of fun. We all really love our jobs. If we didn't love our jobs up here, we wouldn't be doing it, because there's certainly other things we can be doing that might pay us a little bit more. But I think that's about it.
I actually don't know how to do anything else, which is part of the problem.
And also, just one thing, so that if you have any questions, Mike's department runs, the graphics department is under Mike, and the web department is under Mike.
Caroline's my old boss. She's always making sure I don't forget anything.
He skipped the part where I was incredibly instrumental in his career.
And of course, we'll get to that. Mike Monsell, Vice President of Creative Services. Next, Jessica Borg, anchor and reporter.
Okay, bear with me, guys. I'm a little giddy. Walter and I have been up since 2 in the morning, so Walter told me not to ad-lib. But as we were telling you earlier, the best kind of writing is short and sweet, so I will keep this short and sweet. Like Nydia said, I feel like it was not long ago, since was in your position, sending out millions of resume tapes, hoping to get that call back. I'm from New York. I went to NYU, New York University. I majored in communications, which was pretty broad. Fortunately, I knew very early on what I wanted to do. Since I was a little girl, I always wanted to be in TV. And I had heard about this 24-hour cable station in New York, based in Manhattan, that was hyper local news. The reporters, well, New York One actually covered the 5 boroughs. We'll get to the Bronx. He wants to speed up my story. And I landed in Philly. Here you go. And they covered the 5 boroughs, and I heard about all these reporters who did everything themselves, and they're all young, go-getters, fearless, and they, again, were there because they loved news, and they were news junkies, as we're called. And I initially started interning with this entertainment reporter, and he's known around town as the eyebrow man. He has very distinctive eyebrows, and he's a really interesting guy. Unfortunately for me, news was really not his primary job. He was a lawyer by day, and so while he had fun doing news, he didn't care, so much about it. So he really handed me the reins. I got to learn everything. I learned how to write. I would field produce. I would interview all of these people. I would sit with the editor 24 hours, and I learned how to do everything: shoot, edit, assignment edit. I was willing to work every shift, and I got promoted. I got an actual job there in college with the title news assistant. And as a news assistant, because I had access to equipment, I put together a resume tape, and from there I moved on to an even more hyper-local news station, another 24-hour station based in the South Bronx, where I was shooting and editing my own reports. And it was great because we'd cover New York City stories. You'd be with the main press, all of, WPVI sister station, WABC, which is a station I grew up watching, which is great. And from there, I was there less than a year, worked my heart out, again, was willing to work every shift, and really tried to absorb what was going on with the other stations as well, put a tape together, and got a job at the CBS station in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as a reporter and an anchor. And the station is called KDKA, and it's very similar to PVI. It's almost like the PVI of Pittsburgh. It has a great tradition of excellent quality journalism, veteran reporters, anchors, producers, and I was like a sponge, as Mike was saying. I was just soaking up everything. I learned a lot there, and then I really wanted to move closer to home. I really wanted to advance in my career, and I got a job here. In 2 days, I will be celebrating my 6-month anniversary at PVI. I'm having a great time, and it's been a pleasure.
Jessica Board. Next, Walter Perez, reporter and anchor.
Hey guys, I grew up in Edison, New Jersey. I went to Duke University, graduated in 1990. When I graduated in 90, I was like one of the worst job markets in American history. And I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up at that point, even though I'd finished school. And I got a job as a truck dispatcher at a trucking company. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And you hear my parents saying, you went to Duke, you better get a real job. And so someone said, why don't you do radio? And I said, that sounds like fun. And so just like along the lines of what Nidhi's saying, what Jessica's saying, my first job in radio, I was working as an intern for nothing at a local 1,000-watt radio station in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I'd work there 8 hours a day for free and then work another 8-hour shift at the trucking company to make ends meet, and I was still making under the poverty line. So time went on. I was there for a couple of months, and I got a couple of breaks on the air. Then maybe the weekend morning reporter, then the weekend morning anchor, and I kind of built my way up through there. And it came to a point where they were looking for a co-host for the early morning show at that radio station, and a new GM came in and just happened to like me. And you'll see that in your career through your whole career. It's just this one guy just happened to like me and just gave me a break. And I did a talk show for 5 years, and that was the funnest job I ever did in my life. I mean, I had so much. I went on the air and spouted my opinions for 4 hours a day, and I got paid for it. It was great, and we got a lot of notoriety. And that station, if I can toot my own horn, it was a 1,000-watt station, Middlesex County, Monmouth County, Somerset, that area right around there. More people listened to my show in that area than listened to Howard Stern in that area. That's how popular we were. It was such a crazy, we did everything. We talked about politics, we talked about swimsuit issues, we talked about anything, you know? And it was just a lot of fun, a lot of calls and things like that. The guy who was the dean of journalism at Rutgers was one of my frequent guests, because he knew everything about everything. And we talk about different things that happen in the media around the world. And for years he hounded me. He said, why don't you do television? Go into television, because I think you'd really do well. And I said, but I really like what I'm doing, you know? And so years went by, and so finally News 12 New Jersey popped up. I bumped into him again, and Professor Cohen said, I know the guy who's a GM there. Put together a tape. I said, oh, tape of what? I don't know, I'm a radio guy. Put something together, make something up. So I went to this local cable access station in Piscataway. They let me tinker with their stuff, and I put a couple things together. I sent it in. The guy who's the dean at Rutgers literally talked the guy into hiring me. Literally. Just, you know, he convinced the guy that I'd do a good job. My first live shot on the air, and this will be an encouragement for you guys when you do your first live shot and you screw it up, because you'll never do as worse than I did. Fortunately, nobody was watching, because they had a problem with the hookup with News 12 New Jersey. There were only like 8 towns in the whole state who actually got this station for the first 6 months. So I'm doing my first live shot. I'm writing the whole thing. I put it together. I'm on the air in about half an hour, and my photographer says, you better hurry up and write your script so I can edit your package. I said, what's a package? He said, it's the piece that you record to put a piece to go on the air so you can go live. I said, I didn't know. He goes, oh my God. He says, all right, well then make something up and I'll put some video together and just keep talking when we go on the, that's called a live BOSOT. You know, he's explaining to me, I'm learning about the TVs. I'm on the air in half an hour. Some comments could be, all right, well, whatever. So we're getting ready to go on live on the air, and he says, put your IFB on, the little thing we put in our ears. What's an IFB? He goes, oh my God. He runs into the truck, he comes out with his IFB, he slaps it in my ear, he puts everything together. He goes, you're on in 2 minutes. You know what you're going to say? He goes, yeah, I think so, you know. And he said, how are you staying so calm? I said, I don't know what I'm doing, you know. So the anchor tosses, I come off fine, I start talking, they roll the video. Right when they roll the video, the producer doesn't realize it, but he starts talking to the person in the truck, but he hits my key instead, so he's talking to me, okay? So here I am talking on the air, I'm trying to sound intelligible, and this guy's talking to me, and I'm thinking, this guy's trying to tell me something. This is all why I'm live on the air. So I'm trying to listen to him and speak at the same time in this weird accent starts coming out of my mouth. I'm saying, I don't even know, I have no idea what I was saying. And so I'm all done with the live shot, and so thing's over, and I said, man, I don't think I can do this TV thing, man. And the photographer says, what was that accent? And I said, the producer was talking to me in my ear. He goes, the person was talking to you while you were on the air? And I said, yeah. He goes, wow, that was pretty good then. You know? And it was so bad, you know, but after a while you get comfortable with it, you learn what you're doing, you build from there. I was there for a year, and just by doing it, watching other people, you have to watch yourself, guys. If you're going to be on the air, record yourself and watch yourself. That's the best way you learn how good you are and how bad you are. There's no other way to learn unless you watch yourself. Because sometimes you don't realize what you're saying, what you're doing, and you'll see this little thing that you do with your eye or the way you move your shoulder, you look like a dope. There's one guy that I work with, every single time they tossed to him, didn't matter what the story was, he had a little smile on his face and he always nodded like this. And he obviously never watched himself, because if he did, he'd realize he looked like a dope. Well, anyway, from there I went on to Miami. I anchored the early mornings Monday to Friday down there. From there I got a job at WNBC in New York. I started as a reporter at WNBC. I got the weekend morning anchor gig for the rest of my time there. I was 2 blocks away on September 11th. I was the only live reporter who was on the air at the time. I was almost killed. It was a crossroads for me. It was something that changes you forever. Yes, I'm sure it did for everybody else. But being 2 blocks away was something that really, you know, it changed a lot as far as my perspective on my career and what I know it sounds corny, but my life and my family, all that kind of stuff, you know, finding God and everything else. And so when my tenure was done there, I had an option to anchor at WCBS or to come here. And the general manager at the time was a guy by the name of Dave Davis. And in talking to him, he said, Walt, the one thing I can tell you about Channel 6 is that when you come here, you become family. And you don't find that much in this business. As Nikki mentioned before, and Jessica, when you're in the smaller markets, if you could have made money, you'd never leave, because those are the greatest memories you have in this business. I love the people I worked with in your earlier years. But you all move on, you go your separate ways. this is the first time I've been someplace where you have that same feeling, where people genuinely like each other and respect each other, and there's not someone trying to take your job. In the bigger markets, you'll find that everywhere. I mean, you really do. And so we're really blessed to have an opportunity to work at a place where people stay, and they stay till they retire, you know. But the most important piece of information I can pass along was the one that the guy at my radio station taught me. He said, learn how to write and tell the truth. There's nothing more important than those two things when you're doing journalism. Learn how to write and tell the truth. If you can do those two things, and you can go on the air and, you know, and present yourself in a semi-decent fashion, even if you're not the best reporter on the face of the earth, if you do those two things, you'll go much further than you think you can.
Walter Perez. Next,
Stereo.
Carolyn Welch, Vice President for Programming, WPVI.
I'm strategically wishing now that I'd sat over there, so I went before Walter, because that was great. I'm going to start when I was born. I'm going to start with high school, because high school was actually more key for me in terms of what I am doing now. I had the benefit of having a television studio at my high school. And we'd moved to a new neighborhood, and so I was the new kid on the block, and some person came up to me, and she was going to this studio for something, and she said, I didn't even know it existed. I mean, I'd been there like 6 months. I didn't know it was there. And so I went with her. And I'll tell you, I walked in that room, and I just fell in love. And I had a free period, and the woman running the TV studio said, you know what, you want to spend your free period in here? That's fine. And then there was also a course you could take, where we produced a weekly program, and I was the executive producer for the program. So it's very working with anchors in high school is not a whole lot different than than now. So they're still the good-looking ones with the good voices, and you can still hate them at times though, because they're the on-air. They got the good gig. But anyway, it was a great experience.
This is
it's like the thin, beautiful. I'm sorry, I'll get to every once in a while. I'll say, God, why didn't God do that for me? But anyway, so when I went off to college, I went to the University of Virginia, and we've already been through my major. And for those here who don't know what it is, I'm not going to repeat it. So at a cocktail party, I can watch their jaws drop. And they did not have a good communications department there. It was what all the basketball players majored in, so that tells you something about it. And so it just sort of dropped out in terms of my experience. But it never went away in terms of my love of doing it, for me it was taking disparate things and bringing them together and making something that was coherent and entertaining. That was such a thrill for me. So after college, I went overseas for about 1.5 years. And one of the things that I really encourage people, I know that there is this sense, get an internship and then get a job. I'm a big believer in once you are on that track, and I think everybody up here would agree with me, but maybe not. Once you're on that track, it's very hard to step off. Mm-hmm. Because you don't get a lot of opportunities. So when the door opens, it's like, I got to keep following this. So I always say to people, please take a year off. Travel the world. Be a bartender in Peru. Because that life experience will serve you so well later. You will never look back and regret doing it. But if you don't do it, you may well look back one day and regret that you didn't. So it'll all be here when you come back. And often that life experience, if you can sit across from someone who's interviewing them and tell them a fascinating story, you just legged up it on the next guy coming in who's a bore. So really, I'm all for it. So when I got back, I was reading the want ads, and there happened to be an independent producer who was looking for an assistant, and I took that job and spent I can't even remember how long I had that job, but I do remember my mother in my ear the entire time saying, he's taking advantage of you, he's taking advantage of you, he's taking advantage of you. Because I was making maybe $4 an hour, I can't recall. And
That's it, folks.
and he would call me up, at 8 o'clock. I didn't have a car then, and he'd call me up at 8 o'clock at night and say, I was living in D.C. at the time, and he'd say, meet me at the Kinko's in Georgetown. We have to copy 2,000 copies of something that's going to a convention, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, okay. But it was a great learning experience. He also had these little side gigs going on that I'm not entirely sure were legal, because all of a sudden one day in the middle of a big project that had been sold to a cable network, he literally just disappeared. And I was the only one who knew where everything was. And I mean, there was a network waiting for this series. So they brought in a production crew from LA, and the crew could not fire me because I was the only one who knew where everything was. And while we were doing the post-production, editors, they kind of felt sorry for me. And so they helped me make a reel of the work that I had been doing. And I called every station in the DC and Baltimore area. And by that time I knew I wanted to do promotion. I was always interested in getting people interested in what was going to happen. I didn't want to have to tell the whole story. I wanted to hook them in. If I miss the previews at a movie, I don't want to go, because to me the previews are the highlight, and after that it goes downhill. I've just always been like that. I would turn on programs at 9:59 so I could watch the coming up scenes for next week. I didn't care about the program. I liked the coming up. So I knew I wanted to go into promotion, and so I set up informational interviews, and this is key. I set up informational interviews with every creative services director in Washington and Baltimore. And getting those interviews took persistence, because people are busy. They're usually incredibly willing to talk about themselves, but they're busy. So I kept at it, and I went to every single one, and when I got to the Fox station in Baltimore, we talked, and I asked them how he got into, each of them, how'd you get into what you were doing? What do you think are the skills that are required? Here's my background, here's what I'm doing, here's what I think is relevant, how does this strike you, et cetera, just really good conversations, trying to glean as much from them as I can. And I will tell you that I was told multiple times, you'll never make any money in this, go home. And I just kept going. So the Fox station, coincidentally, 2 days before I got there, a producer had left. And he said at the end of the interview, he said, you want to apply for this job? And I was like, yes. And so I did, and I did kind of wacky things. I sent him, which he probably has so that he can really humiliate me one day. I sent him this little box that when he opened it up, it was a pop-up picture of me.
That's good.
And I can't remember exactly what it says. Something like, I'll pop up anytime you need me, or some stupid kind of thing. And for 3 months, I tried not to stalk him, but for 3 months I would call every once in a while. And finally, one time, and I really, because I hate it. I can ask for anything for anyone else. I have a really hard time doing it for myself. So it'd be like, okay, I'm gonna call. And he got on the phone and he says, Caroline, what do you want? And I said, I want a job. And so he said, you've got it, stop calling me. So I started working for them. And for them, the thing that people have said here about, starting in a small station, that you very often need to go to some podunk place, is actually, let me tell you, you want to go to a podunk place, because as they've said, you learn more than you will ever learn. If we said tomorrow, you are hired by Channel 6, I feel like I'm doing you a disservice. And we have a couple of people we've done that with, because you don't get that chance to try and do everything. And more importantly, as I believe it was Walter said, try and do everything and not get fired. I don't think anyone ever watched what I was doing when I was at the Fox station. I don't think they watched their own air. So I learned an immense amount, and an opportunity came up here, and shockingly enough, they hired me. And then from there, it's with creative services. I did that. I just progressed to where I ran the department. And then our programming director became general manager. And for me, I'd been doing creative services for a long time, and I just wanted something. I wanted a new challenge. And I had experience much like Walter in that my very first live show, because I had been doing live stuff. You don't do live stuff in creative services. My very first live show, we're about 10 minutes to air, and I went back. I was supposed to be, producing a little headset on or whatever. I went back and I grabbed a news producer and I said, "How do you work the system in there?" So he came in and he's like, "You push this button to talk to the talent, and you push this button, and I was like, okay. And then one of the producers who was on location, I said, "If you need me to do anything, just let me know." And she said, "Okay." And all of a sudden she gets back on and she says, "Okay, how much time do we have left before this package is over?" I was like, I was supposed to be keeping track of that. Damn. So it was a trial by fire, but it's been a fabulous experience. It's local programming. It's the specials we do. It's making sure everything's fine with the programming that's supposed to be on air. The syndicated things. The directors are under my department, and also I handle crisis PR, which is not the regular like what's on your air, but we saw your anchor running naked through the streets of Center City, and we just want to know what's going on. Those are the kind of calls that I get. So I handle that too.
Carolyn Welch, Vice President for Programming. Thank you. Last on our panel is Bill Wee Willie Weber, who's going to condense really an incredible 40-year career into 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'm the old fart here on this panel. Just an aside, if I may, for you ladies. There at one time was a glass curtain and a ceiling, as you well know in this business and in all businesses for women. Channel 6 is the prime example of that not being the case. Caroline is a VP, several other VPs here. Linda Munich is in charge of a division. Your boss is a lady. The lady who is in charge of this entire station is a woman. So what I'm saying to you is this station is very, very progressive as far as that, so you ladies might appreciate it. I started out a long time ago at WGAL or WLAN in Lancaster, as opposed to GAL. I was a disc jockey. I got drafted in the Korean War. You remember the Korean War was in all the newspapers. MASH is all about the Korean War, okay, now you know. I was a disc jockey on Armed Forces Radio in Tokyo. I came back to Lancaster, got a job on television, one of the first UHF stations on TV in Reading in 1953. TV in 1953. WEEU, no longer there. I was there for close to a year, came into Philadelphia in late 53, 54, got a job at Channel 6 as a summer relief announcer. I filled in when all the guys went on vacation. It was about a 6-month gig. I worked that through and through, filled in for everybody, and worked for 10 years here at Channel 6. Doing whatever they wanted me to do, as much as I could possibly do. And then I signed on in 64 WEEU TV, which was the first, PHL TV, which was one of the first UHFs in Philadelphia. Philadelphia one time only had 3 television stations. Then it went to 6, and we were very successful with the children's program. I had a children's show on Channel 6 in the morning with Popeye, and on Channel 17, the thing that my claim to fame, I had a 4-hour TV show every day, Monday through Friday, from 4 until 7 o'clock at night. And I introduced Spider-Man to the Delaware Valley. That's my claim to fame. Anyway, at the same time I was on radio, WIP in Philadelphia, for maybe about 25, 23 years, WPEN. I leave you with one thought. As Walter said, do whatever you can, because you cannot be pigeonholed. Don't be pigeonholed. If it doesn't work as an anchor, do a talk show. Wait until something else happens. You want to be a disc jockey, be a disc jockey, or do something else. Do as many jobs. I'll give you an example. Karen Rogers works here. I first saw her on Wally Kennedy's interview show. That went. All of a sudden, she's doing a reporting. And then all of a sudden, I see her doing a weather forecast. And then she's doing the traffic. And then she's an anchor. Well, if she didn't have any of those skills, she might not be here, because when Wally Kennedy went off the air, maybe she'd go along with it. What I'm driving at is learn as much as you can about as many things. And that's what they talk about when they say communications is good, but English is good, or general studies. You know, know as much about as many things as possible, because when a door opens or closes, a window opens. So do as much as you possibly can. So I'm a little different from these people. They traveled all over the world. I've been in this town for 50 years. So that is strange, because believe it or not, your life expectancy on the air, Walter, is 3 years, 5 years.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky in any town. That's why I said pack your bag if you're going to go into this business. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everybody, to the panel for the great advice up here. Let's take some questions from the audience. If you wouldn't mind, stand up and tell us your name and your school.
You've had this question for hours now.
My name is Erin. I go to Cabrini College. I'm a freshman. This question is sort of directed to Walter. I know when we were around the editing days, you said a lot of it's like one-man band. It eventually down the road, is that going to limit editing jobs?
Dramatically. It's going to... Offline editing is going to change the industry. You know, how exactly, it's hard to say. I mean, you know, but that's something that's going to change the face of the industry. It's hard to tell at this point how and in what form, you know, because the people who want to go from tape to tape now, that's not going to exist anymore in a couple of years. And this industry changes so much. I mean, as I said to you guys before, this business has been in existence for, what, 50 years? You look at the changes that have happened in that 50, it's just incredible. But that's one of the things that's happening.
Well,
John can answer that question much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let me say that as we make the change from tape-to-tape editing to online editing, the same people are going to be doing the editing for us, and that's going to be the case at TV stations around the world, because it's not, being a good editor is not just about pressing the buttons. It's about having an eye, having a sense for what looks good, having a feeling. It's in many ways an art form. And just because it is a project that is now going to move from two machines hooked together to a computer, doesn't mean that everybody's going to be able to sit down and do it. It's like your home videos of your last family party compared to a Hollywood movie. We can all shoot a camera and point it, but we don't all know how to get great pictures out of it. And what is going to keep everybody in this industry employed in years down the road is learning how to take their talents, their vision, and keep that up to speed with the technology. And all of our editors here, for example, have done a fabulous job and are excited about getting rid of these old clunky machines and replacing them with these great high-tech computers that will do the same thing, but just in a different way. So the flexibility in how you do your art is important, but being able to do that art is even more important.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Craig Bagel from Cabrini College. I've been to several symposiums. Can you guys just speak to everybody about networking and just staying in contact with everybody? Because I feel coming to previous symposiums, the information that you gave to me about networking and contacting people and staying in touch with people really helped me out becoming a senior now and moving forward.
Well, that's the intern program. How many here have have internships? Raise your hand. Everybody here should become an intern, because if you don't know Walter Perez when you go to Cabrini College, if you intern with him, you know him. He may have a friend who lives in Podunk who tells him, hey, there's a job opening. And he said, wait a second, I got a kid who interns with me. Boy, he's a hell of a guy on the air, or he's a great producer. That is this is a very incestuous business. This is a whole bunch of people moving all over the place, but they just keep moving around. So the more people you know, the more contacts. And as Caroline has said in the past and now, not just, you don't want to be a gopher. You don't want to just go for coffee. You want to be an intern who does things. And if you do things, if you know how to edit, or you can edit a story, or you can come up with something good that Walter can use, he'll remember how good you are. So you have to be an intern, but you have to be a good intern and know that you're able to provide something. Once you do that, you've made a friend.
One of the things that's as Willie said, incestuous. I am always amazed as I travel for this job or as I meet people with this job, how everybody I know knows somebody who knows me. You work with somebody. 12 years ago, I worked in Columbus, Ohio. None of those people I worked with in Columbus are still in Columbus. They're all at other TV stations around the country, and all know somebody who knows somebody who knows me. You of course, always want to maintain good relationships with as many people as you can. And you'll also be amazed. Nidhi and I went on a trip to Hurricane Ivan this fall. And while down there, I ran into producers who I had worked with on other trips. And by knowing them and having great relationships with them, it helped us get what we needed. Not necessarily even for a job down the road, but for our current jobs. Everybody's paths keep crossing and crossing and crossing.
It's a very small business, not a business where you want to be burning bridges, because you more than likely run into that person sometime further on down in your career.
Never tell the boss what to do with the transmitter.
And there's a joke, your intern will in turn be your boss someday.
Yes!
Well, I mean, as a quick aside, when I was at WNBC in New York, every single executive producer and producer, except for 3, was an intern at WNBC. Every one of them.
Wow.
3. Yep.
Things
Very
that are-
important.
Internships are extremely valuable and extremely important, but please don't think that network begins and ends there. When you look at the people who are very successful in the business, and I think it probably goes even more for behind the scenes people. I mean, you're networking all the time. You're networking in your life, and it's a great skill to have. I mean, the people, Dave Davis, who used to be general manager here, Rebecca Campbell, who is general manager now, on top of all the television skills they have and all the things they know, the 2 of them can have a conversation with the doorman, and they can have a conversation with the CEO of a major company. And with either one, within 5 minutes, they found common ground, and they can talk for an hour. And it's a great skill to have. And you can work on it if you don't have it naturally. You really can.
And Rebecca Campbell came from programming. Usually the way up is through sales, if you follow what I'm saying. Usually the general manager of a radio station was the former sales manager, either there or someplace else. She came up through programming. She was a PD. She was a program director, which is, again, a very, very unusual, and it should be, you should follow her career. Every lady in this audience should get her Caroline and her bio and look it over and over and over again, because there's a success story.
We've got time for a couple.
Guy should look at Rebecca's and Caroline's careers too, because I mean, if I could follow Rebecca's footsteps through the world, I'd be right behind her. She crosses gender. She's just a great general manager and president.
We've got time for a couple more questions. George?
Hi, George Hunsaker, Rowan University. Most of you guys talk about having to move around constantly, and especially now still being busy. How do you handle your family lives during that move around basis, and now with your current jobs? Do you guys have to work around that, or do you
Thank you.
especially you with the kids you were talking about?
Yeah, and Mike has young ones, and
I started late.
Walter. Yeah, you know, it is extremely challenging, and that's something that I don't think that people can pass by. This is a 24/7 business, and if something happens, the key is having a partner, truthfully, who's supportive. Because if you don't have someone who you can say, "Hi, honey, I know you had something to do tonight, but there's a snowstorm bearing down on the Delaware Valley, and I have to carve out time for news to do cut-ins for the next 8 hours, so I'll see you when I see you," then it would be really hard to do. I mean, that, for me, that's the key, is having someone who can be there.
I think we had 2 more questions. You had your hand raised over here.
Yeah, my name is Shelley. I'm from Cheney University. I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about the difference between networks and local stations, and also between the anchors. Do you guys do any mentoring programs, or do you guys have interns for yourself? Super question.
I will surely take a personal assistant.
Unpaid.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that afterwards. I think that's the best way to absorb everything that's happening in the newsroom. As wonderful as academic credentials are, as I was saying, you're going to learn everything you know about news in a newsroom or out in the field. You're getting hands-on experience. And I still have mentors from my college days who I still call upon for insight into stories and advice on how to progress in this career. You're asking about, how this job affects your life. You have to be prepared for a lot of sacrifices.
I want to add one thing that's important, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I often have people come and ask me, say, can you give my nephew a call? Can you give this guy a call and talk to him? What you know about the business? And my answer to them is no. I'm not going to call him. And they say, well, why not? If he wants it bad enough, he's going to call me. He's going to call me. If you're not hungry, let me tell you something, man. I was living under the poverty line for years. I was working 2 jobs. And I'm not saying this to make it sound like a sob story. What I'm saying is you're going to go through the same thing. And what Caroline said is absolutely right. I've seen people, when I was at WNBC, people coming in because the GM had a friend whose son needed a break, and they put him on the air, and it ruined them. Because they made an ass of themselves in front of an enormous audience. Make an ass of yourself in front of a small audience. Everyone forgets. And people forget, and it goes away. But if you do that in front of a huge audience, the local paper's going to write about it, people will be talking about it, go, be aggressive, keep making those phone calls, keep calling, keep knocking on the door. You're being obnoxious. Yes, you are, but you have to. All right, because there's a line around the block of people willing to take that job, and they want it. And the one who wants it the most is going to get it.
I mean,
That's
the
what
people
bottom
who make
line
it in
is.
this business are not the smartest people or the best looking people or any of those things. The people who make it in this business are the people who are the most persistent, who persevere and who don't give up. And if you can think of anything else you would rather do that. Because this business takes so much sacrifice that it's not worth it unless you really, really love it.
Just want to get one more question in. I think we have time for one more.
I'm sorry, I brought it up earlier when she was asking about a network versus local television. You will see Andrea Wong, who heads the, I think it's called Alternative Programming Division of ABC or something. Used to be Bob Iger's assistant. Bob Iger is now the CEO of Disney. If you look at network, so many of the people from network are people who started out the way we started out at small stations, ripping scripts, grabbing tapes, production assistants, and then progressed up through network. Network has, and you'll see a little bit of tension between local stations and network because oftentimes networks don't have people who ever worked at local stations, and yet people don't watch the network. They watch the network on the local station. So our audience is incredibly important to us. Our community is incredibly important to us. And so if they don't understand how things operate at a local station, they can miss things in the way they deliver things to us. And by the same token, they don't, I think that at least Mike would probably attest to this too. If you're going from a local station and you're trying to apply at network, I've always gotten the sense that there's a little, it's like, oh, well, they haven't been around network. They've been at a local station. Like you don't know how to reach the audience the same way. And again, in my opinion, there's no better training than a local station because then you understand how it works. It's not this mass audience. It's the person next door who's watching you on their television. But yes, so if what you want to do is go network, my advice is start network. If what you want is local television, start local television. There can be crossover. It does happen, but it is not that common.
One last question.
My name is Brooke. I go to Rutgers School of Law. My question is, you started out and you were making $4 an hour, and someone told you we don't know what you're going to look like. You have wrinkled in 5 years. What's the one piece of advice that you were given that kind of has stuck with you that made you get up the next morning to say, I'm going to make the $4. I'm going to send that next tape out? What kind of advice was helpful to you during that?
Someone once told me, don't do this business because you want to, do it because you have to. I mean, it's got to be something in you that it's just what you want to do so bad, and there's nothing else I want to do. I mean, there are other things I could do, but I think Nydia talked about the bug. It really is a bug. I mean, I had options when I was down in Miami. because it's such a huge Hispanic audience that there were offers to do other things when my contract was coming to a close. And I thought about it, but the idea of not being on TV anymore just kind of ate a hole out from inside of me. I love what I do. And there aren't many people, I shouldn't say many, but there aren't an overwhelming number of people in this world who can say, I wake up in the morning, I jump out of bed, and I can't wait to go to work. I can't wait. I love what I do.
It's the people with the fire in their belly that really succeed, because those are the people who are going to be the most persistent, not going to take no for an answer, going to make those cold calls to make sure that your resume that's sitting in a pile of 5,000 other resumes is going to be seen. And you're going to get a chance to at least, throw those news managers a pitch.
I've worked every shift on the radio and TV, and every shift is different, and I've never cursed the alarm, as Walter said. I always wanted to go to work, I always wanted to turn that mic on, or I always wanted to be in front of that camera. And that is the gut, that is that thing burning in your gut that's going to make the difference for you, because this is not a 9 to 5, that is not a Monday through Friday job. This is not off on Thanksgiving or Christmas or your grandmother's birthday. You look at this panel, it's Saturday morning, and these people are here. I'm telling you, if you want the job, you got to sweat for it, and you're not going to get the plum shifts.
Not right away.
Not right away.
Forget about Christmas, forget about Thanksgiving, forget about New Year's Day, weekends,
But I
forget all
also
of it.
think there are days where you are tired and don't want to be on. There are those days, and there are certainly, as you were asking, I mean, there are a lot of people who will tell you can't do it. The thing that always got me by is to remember that it is very, very subjective. So one person may think you stink, and the next person might think you are the best thing since sliced bread. And so I think that's what always gets me through it. When I'm developing that thick skin, I always remember it just takes that one person to like you. And there's got to be someone out there who, likes my look or likes my writing or whatever it is. So take all the criticism that you get and sort of make it your own and make it constructive for yourself, but take it with a grain of salt too, and just keep going.
And then, I'm sorry, I just want to reiterate one more time, because I joke about they're being young and beautiful, and so you hate them, and honestly, there's such a symbiotic relationship between the people behind the scenes and the people in front of the camera, and they're really fabulous, and especially here. I mean, there's such a great quality of people, both on camera and behind camera. But what I do, when I joke about that, what I want you to understand, which was what we were talking about before everyone came in here, which is they're rare. And yes, Nydia is right. If you can keep persisting, and things are very subjective, but also they are rare. On air is hard. You have to have not everyone, in the same way with models, working in front of the camera. Not everyone can develop that relationship with the camera. And that is a rare breed. And the people who are really good at it, it is part work, but I also think part of it is just a natural, like I say, there's some people who are photogenic, and there are some people who are not. But there are great careers all throughout broadcasting. Even if you want to be on air, as John Morris said, when he got involved in producing, it was like, wow, I like this. I want to do this. So there are a lot of great jobs in broadcasting. So don't limit yourself. Keep your eyes open. And going back to that, at the small stations, you may have the opportunity to get the experience of doing both, because you're a one-man band, and you may say, you know what, on air is absolutely what I want to do. I have great synergy, or I can develop it with the camera. Or you may say, to me, the highlight is going in the edit room, closing the door, and making that story come together. And I've just discovered that I have another real passion. So don't limit yourself. Go someplace and try it all.
The other one piece of advice that is important now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, is work hard. You will be surprised how much success you achieve, not through this born ability that you have for a specific job, but just by showing up to work every single day and working 100%. As an intern, it's how you get noticed as an intern. It worked for me with every internship I had turned into a job. Every job that I started as an entry-level person developed into something else. Not because I have some incredible television talent, but because I came into work excited, did everything that was asked of me, and a little more. And those people are the ones whose names rise to the top of the pile. I can't tell you how many interns have worked here through the years since I've been here. And I can't remember 95% of their names, unfortunately. But the 5% I do remember are the ones not who came in and were cute, weren't the ones who came in and had this unbelievable ability to sit in front of a camera, but the ones who came in and you knew if you gave them a task it would get done, and just worked very hard. And those are the ones I now know are successful in the field. Woody Allen said 80% of success is showing up. Show up, do your job, and you will have a surprising amount of success just through that.
The last word on the panel?
And I just wanted to say, when you sort of figure out what you want to do in television, whether it's producing or on-air work, be open-minded, always communicate with, and try to understand the roles of everyone around you. If you are a producer, try to understand everything that's going on in the graphics department. If you're a reporter, understand the role and responsibilities of the producer. I mean, if you really understand, acknowledge, and respect the work of everyone around you, you'll become better at what you do, you'll become more respected, and it's just every department is interconnected, and I can't stress enough that you should really have a line of communication open between you and everyone else around you.
Let's have a hand for our panelists. Great information. I want to bring Frank Hogan up here, the president of the Broadcast Pioneers.
Yes, I have to pull the microphone down. Stop laughing. All right, I just want to explain what happens next. Number one, first, everyone, thank you again to Channel 6, especially to Caroline. Let's give them a hand. There's a little guy in the corner there by the name of Scott Palmer. Maybe you heard of him. He's on television. All right, here's where we're going. There's no more formal addresses. On behalf of the Broadcast Pioneers, Channel 6, I thank you all. I think you have the right attitude. You're here Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and you're dressed up. You don't have like a hangover or eyes. We're going to go down to 2 rooms downstairs in the building. There'll be pizza and soda. We've invited the panel to come down. This is your chance. Go up, introduce yourself, shake hands. And one way you begin your networking might be Monday, or even tonight when you go home, is to jot a little thank you note. It was nice meeting you at Channel 6 on Saturday. My name is so-and-so, and I learned this. Not a bad tip, okay? Thank you all for coming out. I guess who's leading? Who's leading? Who's leading? Who's leading? Somebody's going to lead. Caroline, we lead it. Thank you all for coming out. I hope you enjoyed it.